Welcome to the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I want you to do me a big favor before you check out this clip. I want you to hit the like button. I want you to throw in a comment and make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. And then I want you to share this video with your friends. Help us defeat the algorithm. And then if you like this content and you appreciate this content, please head over to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show and support the show. That is how we actually get funded to be able to do this. So we thank you very much for being here. And now enjoy both. So I appreciate you guys being here and getting a sneak peek of what it's like to wake up with Uncle Mike on Saturday morning, drinking coffee and talking wrestling. So I am going to get into the cuts and which ones I think would be a fit for TNA. I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to start with, I think, the biggest story for TNA this week. And that is Jonathan Gresham has signed with TNA, and tactical playmaker Nonzo himself says, "Sup, Mike? Good signing for TNA for Gresham." Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the signing. I don't hate it, but it doesn't excite me. I think the only thing that I like about it so far is that it kind of sends a signal that, last week we thought, 2 weeks ago we thought, man, TNA, they lost the machine guns. They're only offering them per day deals. That's looking like that's what they're doing going forward. And then last week they signed Ace Austin to an exclusive contract. And we're like, okay, hold on now. Maybe that is not the case. Maybe the media jumped the gun on that narrative about TNA, which is what we've done a lot. We have done a lot, but we only go with the information that we have at the time. We just got to go with it. And then if you just wait a little bit, it plays out, but waiting is boring and it's not good for podcasting. so if all you ever do is every week, well, hold on, let it play out. Hold on, let it play out. No, you have to give an opinion on the information that you have at the time. So at the time it was being reported when the machine guns didn't re-sign and it looked like they were leaving and that they were offered per date deals and that Steve Macklin was offered a per date deal. And then they brought in Matt Cardona and Steph DeLander, who were very clearly on per date. Nick Nemeth, it came out that he is not signed with TNA. He is a per date guy. He does not want to be under contract with anybody because he was under contract for WWE for like almost 20 years. So he wants to remain a free agent, and he is. So when all that's coming out, I was like, okay, maybe that's what TNA is going to be more of going forward, which they have always had an element to their company of per date deals. That's been a big part of their business model for a long time. And it gives them flexibility, it gives the talent flexibility. Unfortunately, it doesn't provide stability in storytelling. They've had some very big name wrestlers in their company that they can't fully get behind because of the uncertainty of their future, right? And so you can only do a small storyline with them and then they're out the door. Or for the case of Matt Cardona, who just recently returned, he was always on a per date deal, which meant you probably are not going to put your title on him. And I thought at one point when he was at his peak in as a heel on the indies, TNA should have put the belt on him. And he would have been the guy to lead that company going forward. The problem was he couldn't make every date. And in fact, there were a lot of dates where he couldn't make. And so he would disappear from TV for a while and then just reappear because there were bookings that he would not give up in lieu of being on TNA. He just wouldn't do it. And it makes sense. He's making so much money in merch and on his independent bookings. He was the top independent star for a while. And he probably still is. I don't know if anybody's over him. I know Ali's doing really good. And I know Nemeth is doing really good, but it's probably still Cardona. So it made sense. Well, so we thought that maybe they were going to go with more per date stuff. And they're still probably going to do that with certain people, but they're actually locking people into contracts. We saw last week AJ Francis and Ace Austin were locked into deals. AJ Francis, of course, just till the end of the year, but Ace Austin's a multi-year deal. And then this week it gets announced that Jonathan Gresham locked in to an exclusive contract. Obviously, they're not going to release the terms of the agreement, but he's in, and they did a vignette for him. It was a kind of an interesting vignette. I don't know what to make of it just yet, but so I find that to be very interesting. I think that's a good sign for TNA going forward. It's like, hey, look, they're not only doing per date. Maybe we jumped the gun a little bit, and that they're going to be signing people. But Jonathan Gresham, let's just get back to him specifically. Let's talk about him. Very good wrestler, very good. But I felt like he was completely disappointing in his previous run. So when he left AEW / Ring of Honor and he came back to TNA, you could just look in his eyes and you could tell that he's not the same guy. Like something happened to where he got there and he had that big fight with Tony Khan, and he's talked about it publicly and he's admitted his fault in that. But what happened was he got over there and he thought he was a super important guy. And then when he got there, there was like, no, you're just a guy. And he immediately lost the belt to Claudio, and that affected him. He thought he was like way up here, and then he gets over there and they got big stars, right? And they're like, well, no, we're putting the belt on Claudio. You ain't shit. And like that affected him. And then and you would think some people when that happens, then of course he ends up leaving that company and he comes back to Impact, because he had like a little bit of a run while he was Ring of Honor champion, where it felt like whoever gets him, they're getting a guy, like he's going to be a good wrestler for somebody. But when he came back, he just wasn't the same guy. It felt like there was no energy there. Like almost like his performances were a bit formulaic and lifeless. Up until the Alex Shelley match. Like I was not a big fan of the speedball matches. I wasn't. I did not like the feud. There was no heat. Nobody cared. The matches were like well performed because those are two very good wrestlers, but there was just nothing there. Like it was nothing must see about it. It was just two guys having matches. And then they tried to go with the heel turn. He turns heel. He immediately gets the Shelley match. And the Shelley match was awesome because look, that's a world title match in the main event of a television show. So I think he brought his A game there. But that was really the only time where it's like, okay, the old Gresham is here. He had the match, he lost, and then we just didn't see him again. And I think it's probably because his contract expired and he was just weighing his options, see what he wanted to do. But after what happened with him and Tony Khan, I don't think Tony was going to bring him back in. And Ring of Honor is like a different Ring of Honor than what Jonathan Gresham was used to. So he's not going to be over there and get to swing his dick around and be kind of a big star. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to go in there with Eddie Kingston as a world champion and be like, look, I'm here. I'm, former world. Like, no, it's not going to happen. Hold on a swig of coffee. So if we can get the Ring of Honor champion level Jonathan Gresham in TNA, that's a really good signing. If he's going to be the lifeless guy having formulaic matches with Speedball Bailey that have no heat and no energy, he's just going to be another dude on the card. He is. So it depends on the guy that we get. But I'm hopeful that we get the Ring of Honor champion, Jonathan Gresham, one of the best wrestlers in the world. I'm hopeful that we'll get that. The vignette tells me they're going to do some character stuff with him, and I think that's going to be important. The Foundation faction in Ring of Honor was cool. I dug that faction. I was not the biggest Ring of Honor fan, but like when I watched Ring of Honor, especially I would kind of mostly watch the pay-per-views. When I would check it out, he was like one of the highlights of the show for me. And that Hard to Kill, and so you guys in the chat probably remind me of which Hard to Kill it was. I want to say it was 2022 when he took on Chris Sabin. One of the better TNA matches in a while up to that point. And I was like, okay, we got to get this dude on the show full time. But of course, like a month later, Tony Khan bought the damn company. So that sucked. And then they got him. So we weren't able to keep him around. But I was like, okay, this mofo, he is awesome. Okay, hold on. Steven in the chat. Thank you, Steven. He said it. Yes, it in fact was 2021. I really appreciate that. So, yeah, Jonathan Gresham, he's in. Of course, his wife works here, so that kind of makes sense. And hopefully they treat him well. Hopefully he lives up to what his reputation was previous to his previous run. And maybe we'll get something out of the guy. I'm hopeful, but I am not overly optimistic about the version of Jonathan Gresham that we're going to get, but I am happy to be proven wrong. And as you guys know, time and time again, people prove me wrong all the time, and I love it. I love casting doubt on someone and they tell me to eat shit and they come and they prove me wrong. Bring the energy. Let's go. I love that.